Hello and welcome. Today we're taking a look at the Tapco Galil magazine. And yes, I did once swear to never do another Galil magazine video.
So help me, this is the last video I'm gonna do about Galil mag.
Because I do believe they are just their own standard and should be treated as such. However, I still think there's valuable data here and I wanted to make a video doing three things. One, talking about this magazine in general and sort of where it came from and what happened to it. And two, I wanted to talk about the exact and actual differences between the other 556AK Tapco magazine, because there is a distinction between these two and it's fairly subtle. And three, I wanted to test it in my M90 because it does fit and it kind of works, so why not? Starting with the mag itself, released sometime in the late 2000s, these mags exist primarily as a 922R compliant piece. The mag itself doesn't inspire confidence due to its all-polymer design, and of course the Tapco brand was never exactly renowned for its quality. Tapco itself was consumed by the Hydra that was the Freedom Group in 2012, and eventually was shuttered as part of the Freedom Group / Remington Flameout in no later than 2020. The Tapco brand itself appears to now be owned by Sportsman's Warehouse, but they are no longer producing these magazines. It seems JRA bought a ton of these mags at some point to support their Galil kit builds, since these were probably the easiest mags that they could get their hands on that were Galil pattern and also US made to fill their 922R requirement. To this day, they ship their Gallant rifles with these magazines, which is actually the very reason I have this magazine. It came with this particular rifle that I recently acquired. So new examples of these mags are technically out there, but they are not really readily available by themselves. That brings us to point number two, which is hypothetical. You're digging through the box of used, abused, and obsolete gun parts at your local favorite gun store, and you pull out a Tapco 556AK magazine. It's $5 and you think, great, but then you wonder which one is it, because it is not clearly indicated just on the markings itself as to which one is Galil and which one is Serbian pattern. So when comparing the two, unfortunately the Tapco markings are all the same. It has the same cage code and it has the same caliber markings. In my case, the Serbian pattern does actually have an additional Tapco engraving on the follower itself, but otherwise the followers look identical, and there's about 6 years of difference between the manufacture dates of these two examples, so I don't think that is a sufficient enough distinction for us to rely upon. But if we look at the locking lugs themselves, we can find a difference. So the Galil pattern actually has thinner front and rear locking lugs because it sits more angled than the Serbian pattern. The distinction is subtle, but it matches similar distinctions when comparing original Galil magazines and Serbian metal magazines, so it's definitely there. It's a very subtle difference, and it's much more apparent when you have both to compare, but thin locking lugs on the front and rear is a dead giveaway that it's a Galil, and much thicker locking lugs that extend further down the body of the magazine is tall tale that it's Serbian. The Serbian pattern also has an extra notch on the left feed lip to better accommodate the ejector due to sitting a bit more proudly inside of the receiver. These subtle but significant differences are the only way I've been able to identify a distinction between the two. Obviously, I wrote on mine to make it easier for myself, but looking at the two, it is hard to tell unless you pick them up and hold them next to each other, or make specific note of the thickness of specifically the front locking lug, because the Serbian front locking lug, it comes down about twice as far from the top of the magazine than the Galil mag. Congratulations, you're now equipped with the knowledge to make this distinction, which brings us to the final point, functional testing. What's the point of knowing which mag is which if it doesn't actually work in the rifle that you have? In sum, the Galil magazine worked fine in the Galil pattern rifle, because I do think it is its own standard and it should be treated as such. I would presume that would hold true for other Galil pattern rifles. The Zastava M90 has a magwell that is wide enough to accept the Galil pattern Tapco magazine. However, there's a significant amount of front and rear play, and I was able to induce a malfunction by applying pressure to the front of the magazine itself, causing the round to nosedive when feeding. And while otherwise it did technically work, I absolutely would not recommend it for this rifle, because this rifle is not made for Galil pattern magazines, even if they do technically fit sometimes. And for what it's worth, the Galil pattern Tapco mag did not fit inside of the barrel because the AK-74 style magwell is just nowhere near wide enough to accommodate it. And the Serbian pattern Tapco magazine does not fit inside of the Galil rifle. I suspect this is entirely due to the thicker locking lug on the front of the mag, forcing the mag too far back to pivot up into the receiver the way it needs to. And that's all I've got for today. These mags serve their purpose in their time and are, and always likely will be, just a niche commercial offering brought to market due to dumb import laws, and are range mags at best. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.